Melissa, it is so great to have you with us today. To start things off, can you share a little bit about your journey and what led you to specialize in systems and workflow setups?
Yes, absolutely. One, thank you for having me. I am also so excited to be here. This is going to be so much fun today. So I am a systems and workflow consultant, which means I set up systems and workflows for people in their CRM and in their project management tool. My journey to get to this point has not always been clear cut, right? So when I was a kid, I'm going to say a kid, that had just graduated college, I worked for a major healthcare IT company on a process improvement team. And that's where I first fell in love, safe to say, with post-it notes and workflows and process mapping and process improvement and all of that. Um, Fast forward a few years and I left that job to build a wedding photography business with my husband, where I loved all the behind the scenes work more than I loved actually taking pictures, which is scandalous for a photographer. Um, so the pandemic hit and wiped out our businesses 15 years later, right? The pandemic hit and it wiped out all of our businesses, all of our photography businesses. And I started to pick up some VA work to like bring money in because it's the pandemic. You got to do what you got to do. And I found
Right.
that the clients that I loved most were the clients that had me working in their CRMs and helping them improve their systems. And so I decided to start my own business, which is virtually done, which is what I do now, that focuses solely on that. So it's been a curvy path, but I wouldn't trade any of it.
You know what? I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who has said that, oh, yeah, like I knew this is what I wanted to do, and here I am. Not once. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there, but I just happen to get all the guests that align with the way my path was. And it's like, I don't know how I ended up here, but it's super cool. And I'm glad I did.
Yes, exactly. Was this on my bingo card when I was 15 years old trying to
Yeah.
pick what I was going to be? No, definitely not. But
No.
I wouldn't trade it.
Exactly. I get that so much, so much. For our listeners who might be new to this, could you explain exactly what is a project management tool and how does it function within your business?
Right. So this is where I'm going to nerd out a little bit, and my nerd is going
Go
to
ahead. I
shine
love
just a little bit because this is
it.
one of my favorite things to talk about. So a project management tool is going to be a tool that you use in your business to put it easy to help you manage your projects, right? What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Essentially, it helps you keep track of all of the behind the scenes work that happens for all of your client work, right? So your CRM or your client relationship manager handles all of the front facing, all of the client communication, scheduling meetings, contracts, invoices, questionnaires. But where does your work go? Not in your CRM, right? That's not what it was built for, no matter how many of them say it was. Instead, it's got
Right.
to go into this project management tool, right? Your CRM can't handle, it's not built to help you chase your goals and chase your dreams down, right? And help you set dates to achieve those things. It's not built to handle your ever ongoing to-do list that's a mile long, right? Those things
Mm.
need some place to go that is not your brain, so you
Yep.
can function as a human being and stay focused in your zone of genius. And your project management tool is that. Now, the second part of your question, how does it function in your business? Dang, it makes sure you don't lose a single thing, right? Let's talk here for a minute about all the ways it functions in your business. For me, it is my lifeblood. I cannot function as a business owner or as a human unless I look at my project management tool. It keeps track of all my client projects and deadlines and all of the manual physical work that goes into each one, right? It's where I
Yeah.
manage my team. It's where I manage my goals. And if I have a goal to like launch a new product, that's where all of those deadlines and tasks are. I literally log into this tool every morning and it tells me exactly what work I have to do for who. And I couldn't function without it. So it helps make sure that things don't slip through the cracks and that you rock it all the time. You know what I mean? Or as much as you
Yeah.
can. We all have our down days. I will admit that. But it
Yeah.
helps keep you on track and functioning.
No, I get that. Every morning I will first I check my email, right? And
Mhm.
then I actually use two different things. Well, for my project management, and I think when we first spoke, because we spoke offline a while ago,
Mhm.
and I was using a different platform, and I've now switched like my CRM to HubSpot.
Uh-huh.
And right, I said, oh, I was thinking about it, I think when we talked before. Well, I pulled the
Mhm.
trigger on that. But my project management, I keep track of everything in Asana.
Mhm.
And that's where I have all those things. And yeah, you know what? I was always looking for that one tool that can do it all,
Mhm,
but it's not
mhm.
supposed to, which is what you said
No.
just a little bit ago. It's like it's not supposed to. But yeah, it can get it. I get it. I get it. And it's so important because I always joke, I'm like, if something is not in that tool or in my task to do, it is not getting done. I will forget about it. It's
Same,
just, yeah.
same.
So, so let's talk a little bit about workflow, right? And what does that mean? Because obviously we're talking about the tasks. I'm talking about the tasks and like the little bullet points, right? We're talking about project
Right.
management, but what is a workflow? What does that look like?
Yeah. So essentially, in an ideal world, a workflow in your project management tool is going to mirror and mimic the workflow that you have built in your CRM, just with all the steps that aren't in your CRM, right? So if you book a client, right, you have clearly your CRM takes care of sending them the proposal and sending them the invoice and the contract and sending them the hey, thanks for booking email. But if you're a gifter, you need to have a task that reminds you to gift this client, right? So in your booked phase, right? You need to have a task to remember to set up the Google Forms if that's a manual task, or the Google folders if that's something that you have to do manually. You have to have a task to remember to set up their project template if that's something you have to do manually. If there's any manual work, so your CRM is taking care of sending emails, sending forms, sending schedulers. On the backside of that, you have tasks to send gifts, create Google folders, add to this project, add to Slack, add to this, do that. So that way you keep track of it. Your workflow in your project management tool is literally all the stuff you have to do to work with a client that's not client facing, right?
Right, right. And do you create that yourself then, right? You create
Yes.
something like what that workflow looks like, and then it duplicates for every client.
Yes, that's
If that stays the same, right?
yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
I recommend absolutely once you create a workflow, once save it as a template. And I think all of your project management tools out there will let you do that. So that way, when you
Yeah.
book another client with the same service or offer, it's already built. You just have to apply the template and change the dates, right? Some
Yeah.
of your tools will change those dates for you, which is super fantastic and exciting. And the thing to keep in mind, you just made a really good point about how if a client books the same thing, even if you do a lot of super custom work, I work with a lot of graphic designers and they're like, everything is custom, nothing is the same. If that's the case, build your workflow template in your project management tool to include all the things. It's going to be easier for you
Mhm.
to dump it all in and then remove what you don't need than to start with the bare bones and try to add the things that you think you need, you know what I mean? Or that you
I
maybe are
get
going to
it.
add.
I get
So,
it. I design websites, so
mhm,
no website is the same. But if you look at my workflow for a website design, I don't even know how many steps are actually in it. And most of them I have to do, but there are
mhm.
some that don't apply. And so I just remove it. And then some are changing because technology changes,
Right. But
right?
also, you
So
bring
you
up a really
update.
good point. You know what I mean? Should workflows change? How often do I change that? As technology changes, as your offer changes, as your
Yes.
brand and the way you communicate with your client changes, it changes in your CRM, but it's also going to impact the manual work that you do on your side as well too. And those workflows in your project management tool should change as well too. It's like your website. You're not
Yeah.
going to build it once and leave it for 10 years.
No.
Can you
No.
imagine?
No, which by the way, I love your website. I don't know who did it, but
Thank you.
this website, the design and the layout, and I know we're getting off topic for a little bit, but it is seriously, it speaks to the end user, like your target audience. And when I was on there again today looking at things, I'm like, gosh, this is a great website. Like she's nailed it. So whoever
That
did that for you did a really good job. And your
that means the
copywriter did a good
world.
job.
Because you were gonna cringe hardcore when I tell you this. I did it.
Did you really? You know
I
what?
did.
I love the copywriting in it
Thank
because it
you.
really follows the flow to get sales. And so yeah, you did a killer job. So
Thank you. That means a lot.
yes, I love it. I love it. So if somebody is listening, right?
Mhm,
And they're like, okay, I think I need this project management tool.
mhm.
Maybe it could help me stay a little bit more organized. What's the first step they should take to figure out like which direction do I go? Like,
Which
how do I
direction
integrate this
to
into
go?
like this
What do
into
we
my
do?
business?
How do I start,
Yeah,
right?
what do I do?
What happens? First, I'm going to encourage you to make a list of all the things that are floating around in your head to get them out of your head, right? All of those things are going to go into your project management tool. So if you're like, this sounds great, but I don't have anything to go into it, yes, you do, 100%. Second, you need to find a tool that is going to work for you. And I don't say that lightly because, yes, you can Google project management tools and you're going to get, gosh, how many different results?
Oh my
500 different
gosh. And
results
I may
and
have tried them
500
all.
different ads. Right. It's
Melissa,
a
I think I've tried
process.
them all.
Let me tell you, oh my gosh, right? Let's talk about that for no, let's not talk
Yeah.
about that. We won't talk about anything else, but absolutely. But then you have to find the tool that works for you, right? For a lot of creatives, that's going to be me, that's going to mean keeping it visual, right? So I encourage a lot of people who are brand new to the world of project management tools, start with something super simple like Trello, right? It's a visual process. It's easy to create a workflow or a board. You can visually move things around. And once you get the hang of that and you're like, okay, I can do this. I need to like level up. Then you move on to the next step, right? And that's going to be something that's a little more complex, like ClickUp or Asana or Notion or Monday, or again, pick one from the list of Google ads that you return in your search, right?
Yeah.
But essentially, you need to find a tool that works for you. Just because you pick a tool for the first time does not mean that it's going to work for you. The trick to using these tools in your business and to actually like making them work for you is to use it consistently and for it to operate the way that you operate, right? So while I say, like, don't jump into something super complex first. If that's your jam, that's fine, but start with something that you know you're going to get a win in, which is why I suggest Trello,
Yeah.
right? Dump everything that's on that brain dump that list that you just listed out into like a massive to do or brain dump board, if you will. Then start building your workflows that mimic with your then start building your workflows that mimic your workflows in your CRM, service by service, offer by offer. For everything that you do with client, every offer, you need to have a workflow for that, piece by piece.
Yeah.
Start little, right? Start small, and then get
Yeah.
bigger.
You know what? It sounds overwhelming to start with because you're like, God, I have to write every single thing down that I do for every
Mhm,
service or product that I sell, where that could be where the flow is different, right?
mhm, mhm.
So, yeah, it is time consuming in the beginning, but it saves you time after.
Right? Right. Can you imagine? Like, so as a wedding photographer, and I'm going to refer back to that time in my life because that's when
Yeah.
I realized that I needed a project management tool in my life. I thought, I'm just a photographer. There's that just, right? I am
Oh,
just this
yes.
or just
Yes.
that. I'm just a small business. I don't need this in my life. It's not going to do anything but complicate things. That's the mindset I had for a really long time. It's going to be too overwhelming, too much. This is just me being extra. It wasn't until I implemented these tools and started using them consistently that I started to get time back into my life and into my day because I
Oh,
no longer sat down and was like, what work do I have to do? I don't know. Let's open
yeah.
Instagram and scroll for 5 years. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I hear
so
you.
it's so overwhelming to get started, but it's worth the overwhelm and fighting through that to get to the end product, to get to the end point.
So, based on your experience in working with all of this, are there certain features that if you are a creative business owner, right, and you're looking for a project management tool, and there, like you said, there are a lot out there, right?
Yeah.
But are there certain features that you're like, yeah, these are must-haves. Like, make sure that it has this because it's going to make your life easier.
Yes, 100%, 100%, right? Due dates. Can we even function without due dates as business
Well,
owners?
okay,
I don't know. I don't want to think
yeah.
about that, right? And not just the ability to set due dates, but the ability to like remap a due date. I know that you probably know as a website designer that projects get pushed, deadlines get pushed, no matter how much we try to keep them on task,
Right.
right? You want to be able to work in a system that lets you push those due dates if you need to, right? If you're
Yeah.
managing a team, you want to be able to communicate with your team easily and in one place. So you want to be able to add members to that space where you can communicate with them. You want to be able to shoot. Some people invite clients to their project management tool. Make sure you have a client place dedicated to do that, right?
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people, once they've got the hang of a project management tool, will start to incorporate automations into that project management tool, right? Just like you can
Hmm.
automate in your CRM, you can automate in your project management tool. If you're looking to find a tool that grows with you, make sure there are things that you can automate, like when this due date is completed, move to this status, or vice versa, that kind of thing. Um,
Okay.
you want to be able to, this is going to sound super simple and silly, but add attachments to things, to your tasks or to your projects. That way, if you're
Yeah,
managing
it
things,
does, but I recognize the importance, and I
yeah,
don't think like when I first started looking at a project management tool, I don't think I thought about attachments. And then
yeah,
I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's so valuable because you can just go back and take a look and
mhm,
everything is organized. But no, I'm glad you
right.
said that because that would be something I would have skipped over.
Me too, right? Until you get there. I mean, SOPs, all that good stuff. You should have a space in your tool for that, but also that's something that you can attach. And then lastly, I think that your tool needs to be able to talk to other tools and other platforms that you work
Mm.
in, right? So whether it integrates
Uh,
naturally with your Google Calendar or whether it integrates with Slack or whether you can connect it to Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever. If you use all of these other tools, you want to make sure that they talk to each other. My favorite
yeah.
thing for that is Zapier, right? But if you can
Yeah.
find a tool that naturally integrates without having to have that third party piece, that's fantastic, right?
Even better.
Absolutely fantastic. Exactly.
Yeah.
And above all else, like I mentioned earlier, it has to be a tool that works for you. So if you like to
Yeah.
keep things visual, keep it visual. If you're a list girl or an Excel spreadsheet girl like I am, make sure you can view things that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Keep that in
Yeah.
mind. How do I work?
So I have to ask, what do you use or what's your favorite?
Yeah, I use
I,
ClickUp. That is my favorite, which I feel like that puts us up against each other, right? ClickUp
yeah.
and Asana, just a little bit.
A
It's
little
like
bit, a little bit.
it's like
I'm
HoneyBook
not
and Dubsado, right?
Yeah, no, very similar yet different. And
Mhm.
I started on Asana and I remember somebody else telling me, no, ClickUp is great. And I was so used to Asana and I went to ClickUp and I'm like, oh, I'm used to what I have. Like, and
Yes.
I just didn't put
Right.
the energy in to really learn it because I'm like, no, it looks very similar. And
Mhm.
so I don't even know if there are differences between the two or not.
Right? I use ClickUp for the same reason, right? I've managed projects in Asana for clients and that kind of thing, and it's fine, it's great. It's just not what I'm used to. I like
Right.
ClickUp a little bit better. So there's not a right or a wrong tool to use. This goes back to you pick a tool that works how you work, right?
Right.
Um, either one of us could swap tools and be fine, but we just prefer this. So
Right.
I am a yeah, I'm a ClickUp girl, for better or
That's
worse.
so funny.
For time being, the fact of that
I
matter
know,
is
right?
though,
I'm
like
always changing. And
yes.
somebody had mentioned Notion to me before, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I want to check this out. It sounds amazing." And I went over, and it does look amazing. But I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth right now in my life to learn something else. This is working.
Yeah.
Maybe if there's ever a lull, or if I hire
Yes.
somebody to set up exactly the way I want, then cool, because it looks awesome. But I'm like,
Right.
it's not happening right now.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I feel the same way about Notion. It looks really cool, but I don't think that I
Does
have
it?
the time for that right now.
Right? It does. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, whoever created it. But yeah, I'm
Right.
not there.
No,
I'm
and
not
this whole
there.
conversation brings up a really good point of just because there's a hot new tool on the market doesn't mean that you have to change, right? If you
Right,
are happy
absolutely.
functioning in your tool, don't think that just because, oh, so and so uses this, that means I have to change. No, if you're happy and it's
Yes.
working for you, stick with it.
I think that's so important because we do hear people talk about how great the tool is, whatever it is that they're using. I can talk about Asana and how amazing it is because I've used it
Mhm.
for so many years and it's really, really helped me. But if you're using ClickUp and it's working for you perfectly, then why would you waste the time and energy, unless there was
Right.
something that your ClickUp didn't have or Asana
Mhm.
didn't have and the other one did and you really
Mhm.
needed it, then I get it. But
What is it my dad
yeah.
likes to say? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right? So you talked about how important it is to have a project management tool work with your CRM.
Mhm.
And you did touch on like little things, but can you elaborate a little bit more about how to really like connect these two systems and make them even more powerful?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it boils down to your workflows, right? And having
Hmm.
them, how your workflows connect and not, I'm not going to say connect, but how your workflows are set up and function. A
Hmm.
lot of small business CRMs don't natively connect to project management tools, which I realize is the antithesis of what I just told you to do, make sure your tools connect and talk to each other, right? Okay, well, but a lot of them don't talk to project management tools. And so the workaround for that, if you don't want to use a tool like Zapier, is to make sure that your workflows are identical in phases. And what I mean by phase is like when you look at your client life cycle from start to finish, if you have a lead phase, if you have a booked phase, if you have an onboarding phase, if you have an InDesign phase, make sure you have those same phases in your CRM and your project management tool. When you lay the two side by side, they should be this happens here, that happens here, this happens here, that happens there, this happens there, that
Mm.
happens here. You know what I mean? If you
Yeah, I
decide to
do.
actually get them to talk to each other, like using a tool like Zapier, then you're going to want to find out what triggers you can use in Zapier for both your CRM and your project management tool. I'm a Deb's Auto Girl for my CRM. I'm not, I hate using it with Zapier. I'm going to say that because there are like
Yeah.
only 4 triggers that I can use to trigger automations in my project management tool and ClickUp and in other pieces of software, which is a massive pain in the butt for a systems girl who wants to automate the
Yeah.
whole dang thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you want to make sure that if you want them to talk to each other, they can talk to each other. That means like I mentioned earlier, when you book a client, when a contract is signed in your CRM, have it automatically create and apply that new template in your project management tool so that all you have to do is go in and remap the dates.
Yeah.
Once this task is completed here, if the triggers in Zapier will allow, change the status in your CRM to this, which will then fire this email or scheduler or whatever it might be. So
Yeah. And
that's kind of a lot.
yeah, no, it's a lot, but it's really good. And I'm listening to you and I'm like, I'm kind of going that through that now because we talked not too long ago, but a while ago initially.
Mhm.
And I converted over to HubSpot, which
Mhm.
has so much. I haven't even tapped into it, right? I'm a lot further along than I thought I would be. And
Yeah.
I've learned a whole lot, right? But I know there's a whole lot more that is
Mhm.
still there to be learned.
Mhm.
But I'm right now finding my groove of what goes into HubSpot and what goes into Asana.
Mhm.
And a couple times I've made those changes because I'm like, no, this just feels a little bit more natural to do it this way than
Mhm.
that way. And so I understand what you're saying. It's like when you find that you set those systems up and they work, then it's like, God, it saves you so much more time. Yeah, I
Right.
know I said that before, but it's like
Genuinely.
it's so yeah, it's such a time saver in the end, even though it's time consuming in the beginning to set it
Mhm.
up, but once
Mhm.
it automates and
Yeah.
it just does it for you in a sense, like tells
It's
you what you have to do next.
beautiful.
It is beautiful. I love it.
Well, and it doesn't just save you time, it also saves you brain power, right?
Yeah,
So, like,
yes.
I have already made all of these decisions once when I was not super crazy, not amped up on caffeine, when I had enough sleep. And so now that I am managing 500 projects and everybody needs something from me right
Yes.
now, I can rely on these tools to tell me exactly what I need
Yeah.
because slow season me built this with intention so that fast busy season me could use it, right? Like it keeps
Yes.
your brain focused and it keeps you doing what you love to do, designing
Right.
websites, building systems.
Well, yes, exactly, exactly. And I will say this, I want to add because I was that person for a while that when I started my business, I'm like, I really don't need a CRM. Like it's not really necessary. I have my clients, I know what to do, but when your business changes, like what you said, and you have multiple clients and they're all doing different things and you're in different phases, it's like, oh my gosh, like it does. It saves the brain power. It keeps me on track. And and I kind of feel bad because sometimes a client will say something and I'm like, was it that client or this client that made that comment? And then I can go back and I can check and see what those conversations were. And I'm like,
Yes,
okay, that's what we said, right?
right.
Because it does get to a
Exactly.
point where it's like you need somebody else to keep you organized
Right.
or a
But
system.
also, you bring up a really good point of what did this client say? What did this client say about this? You go back and look. If you're managing a team and you're managing that team in email and text message and WhatsApp,
Yes.
I love it. I love those tools too. But like being able to communicate about a client's project on that client's project and having that track record without having to go back and scroll and search, but
Yes.
having a dedicated space for that, such a game changer, right?
It
Everybody is
it
on the same
is.
page.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. 100%. So for anybody who's listening and wants to know more about you, Melissa, and they need help. They're like, I need this girl to help get me organized. How can they find you?
Sure. So I am, shoot, it's all the same, right? Virtuallydonesystems.com or at virtually done systems. I am Melissa at virtuallydonesystems.com for email, right? I mainly live on Instagram. I'm working on building Facebook up, but it's all the same there.
Yeah.
Yeah, reach out. I'd love to chat with you. Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. And all of the links will be in the show notes, in the podcast, on the blog, wherever you are listening or watching this, you'll be able to reach Melissa. Melissa, thank you so much. I always enjoy talking to you. It's so
I
much
know,
fun.
right? It's so much fun. I wish we lived closer so
I
we could go out for
know.
coffee. Like,
I know. I know. We're gonna have to figure out how to do that one day.
yes,
Or
absolutely.
or have virtual coffee, right? We could just
Perfect.
catch up.
Perfect.
I love it. Anyhow, thank you for coming on. All right, everybody. We will catch you next week. We'll see ya.